Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing very well. I know that you're busy, but nevertheless, I hope you're doing well. So, in this video, I decided to comment on your research paper proposals, and because your essays are coming up, and I'll leave commenting on your discussion boards for maybe again this in a couple of days, basically. That is also important, but your essay is coming up, and I think your essay has precedence over the discussion boards at this point. So a few things that I've noticed I think should be clarified, and with this, I think your papers should be better. So I have commented on your proposals. Not all of you have submitted your proposals, but many have. And I've noticed that many of you decided to answer question number 2, 3, and 4, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look here quickly. Yes, so question number 2 is on the neuroscientific level of description of the self, that is, or neuroscience / neurology. In general, what neuroscience and neurology can bring in to the study of self and consciousness. Is it tenable? Is it not tenable? Is it deeply flawed? And question number 3 is about Neiser's paper on 5 kinds of self-knowledge, whether the self can be divided into 5 different types of selves or features of self, but it is, or whether it functions as a unit, even though it has different features or sides or perspectives. And then question number 4 is on depersonalization, whether depersonalization can be explained from a neuroscientific perspective or a neurological perspective, and whether this perspective can be tied to or correlated with the psychological level of description of depersonalization. And number 5 and number 1, I think maybe 1 or 2 students are attempting number 1 on the narrative self. Okay, so let me just, so in terms of number 2, 3, or 4, what is most important, and based on your proposals, I've noticed what is most important and often missing in your proposals is a clear thesis statement. And a clear thesis statement is very important because it lets me know as a reader, and also other readers out there, what it is that you are arguing. So your thesis statement has to be very clear. So whether you're arguing for, whether in number 2, for instance, whether you're arguing for the position that neuroscience is an important scientific investigation, and especially important now that we are trying to locate or correlate the self with the brain. If you're arguing that neuroscience is important or neurology is important for the study of self, then just state it. I do believe, or I think that neurology is important. I do think that neuroscience is important. And this is why I think it is important. And you can also add to that how you will defend your position. So after you state your thesis, you can say, in this paper, I will argue for my thesis in the following way. First, I will do this. Second, I will do this. And third, I will do that. So in this way, I see that you have a thesis statement and then a clear project. And you should say that in the introductory paragraph. And so that once that is done, when I read, I have a clear expectation I have a clear idea and expectation of what is to follow. from your thesis and from your plan. So please keep it as clear and as simple as possible, but of course not simplistic, because this is not a simplistic topic. It's quite complex, but nevertheless, you're required to navigate in through these difficult topics and concepts. You're asked to navigate as clearly and as swiftly as possible. That is not an easy task, but that is basically the task. So so once you have your thesis, it has to be clear. You have to be clear in your mind what it is that you're trying to say, whether you agree with this, with one of my questions or one of the options for my questions, or whether you do not agree, whatever it may be. Okay, so and then your defense of your thesis is basically based on your research. Okay, so if you have research to show that neuroscience is really making progress in discovering what the self is, or how the self is related to structures and functions and mechanisms in the brain, then just pick 3 or 4, between 3 to 5 good arguments or with good examples from the literature, and describe them. And then you'll just conclude, and that's basically your paper. Okay, so you have your thesis, you have your plan, and then your defense of your thesis with specific data, specific findings, specific examples. Now remember, your findings, the data and descriptions and examples have to be very specific, and they all have to relate to the thesis. Okay, if you're trying to bring in all these ideas from different areas to show me that you have made all of these associations, or you have done all this research, but I do not see how all of this research, all of these associations, or all of these ideas, or all of your examples relate to your thesis, then your work is unclear, it's muddled, it's all over the place. And a lot of you have made this mistake in your midterms, especially on question number 1. Obviously, question number 1 was harder than other questions, because the other questions were more descriptive than question number 1. Question number 1 was more argumentative. It also required descriptions, but it was more argumentative than the other questions. So make sure that after you have your thesis, that everything that follows later in your paper nicely and tightly defends your thesis. If that's not the case, then I will pick up on that pretty quickly, and you will start losing marks. The other thing that so before I go on to one more point, an important point, I should say that once you see yourself going off on tangents in your writing, you have all these ideas, or maybe, and then all of a sudden in your head, you think, oh, okay, I saw this mentioned in a paper, or maybe I should bring that in because that's also related, but you don't quite know exactly how a specific example or data or an experiment is related. It's vaguely related to your thesis. Don't bring it in. If you don't know exactly how it relates, and you can't explain it in a clear fashion, how it relates to your thesis or to your other examples that are in support of your thesis, then cut it out. Okay, you don't need to, your thesis does not need to be busy with many ideas. It needs to be first and foremost clear with a few ideas that all work together to bolster, to provide a good defense for your thesis. That's what I'm looking for. Now, once you write your paper, you should proofread it yourself a few times. And if I were you, I would read it out loud to myself. Because when you read out loud, you notice more, basically. You are more sensitive to how the language is used, and you're more sensitive to the grammatical flow of your essay. So when you read in your head silently, it's different. But when you have to read something out loud, the way I'm speaking right now, I have to really monitor so that my words and my sentences and the choice of my words are clear, accurate, and logical. So it is important for you to, I think it's important for you to read it out loud to yourself, because when you do so, you'll be able to pick up pretty quickly on something that's off. It just doesn't sound right. Something grammatically is falling apart, or it's a run-on sentence, or you mention something but you don't explain it. If it's not clear to you, if it's vague to you, if it's muddled to you or sloppy to you, then I'm going to get the same impression. I'm going to pick up on it in the same way. And again, I will have to dock marks because of it. So please keep that in mind, okay? If my comments back to you were that your work is not clear, it requires more research, then that's basically what you need to do. You need to you need to do better at clarifying your ideas, your thesis, and you also need to do more research in order to defend your thesis. Okay, so I think that's basically it in terms of your essays. Again, the extension is, I have extended the due date until November 20th because a few of you have asked me to do so, and I think I can do that. So I have already done that. Yeah, I think that's it in terms of writing your papers. If you decide to give it to someone else to read it for you, which I think is also a good idea. If you give your paper to someone who has not studied the topic, who is not in, in psychology, in philosophy, or has no background in neurology and neuroscience, then, and they do understand your paper and they say that your paper is clear, then that is a compliment. Because if someone who is not familiar with any of the literature that we have studied has been able to understand what you're saying, that means you have been clear, and that is a proof that you have composed good work. So if you want to give it to your whatever sister, brother, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, friends, whoever, in order to test for clarity whether you have been clear and explicit in your paper, then by all means. And if they say that they don't understand, or they don't understand anything, then that means you have not been clear and you haven't been able to explain your ideas in a logical and clear fashion. Okay, so again, if you have any additional questions in regards to my feedback, email me or email me if you really want to have a short Zoom meeting with me. That's okay with me too. And again, our office hours are on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to 10:30. And if you are going to attend the office hours, then please let me know ahead of time. All right. So thank you for your attention, and I'll talk to you and see you soon. Good luck.